What's going on, Axie fam? Elijah here, back with another video. I've got a very exciting one for you today. It's a topic I haven't covered yet on this channel, so probably long overdue. We're going to be discussing some of the most common mistakes people make when either getting involved in Axie Infinity for the first time or just in general when searching for Axies, especially ones that you're trying to get a good deal on. I went on a bit of a rampage the other day and posted 3 tweets in a row of some floor Axies that were hanging around. This is a 47 Rice Gota Beast with 1 Aqua part, which is incredible value for 0.09 Ethereum. And then I got this bad boy, very high meta build, with the only adjustment being, again, a bird part on the mouth, but it's 0.275 ETH instead of what the pure version would go at, which is around half of an Ethereum. And lastly, we got this cute little Axie here, really right at the very bottom, around floor prices, 0.07 ETH, 216 bucks, 45 speed. Again, this is also 45 speed. And because these aren't pure, you're getting those perks of aqua parts, bird parts, aqua eyes and ears, things that can be found under the radar and give you a huge advantage, especially as you're climbing the ranks. Most people are just going to go find a 41 stuck in the mud pure beast and miss out on a lot of value. So I am excited to announce that I'm actually going to be giving away this beast that I just mentioned, the one I got for 0.07. I'm excited for one of my followers to snag it and hopefully name it something cool. It's been a long time since I've done a giveaway related to an Axie, so I'm hyped for that. All you are going to need to do is follow the link in the description to make sure that you're eligible for this, and I'll be announcing the winner on Wednesday, September 1st on Twitter. This isn't going to be streamed live. This is simply going to be done through the application list below, so make sure you fill that out. And one other thing before we jump into this, I have a massive announcement on the way. It is coming very soon. One of the reasons I've slowed down on content just a little bit these past 2 weeks is because I'm working on a project that I am insanely hyped for. So the first week of September, you will be hearing officially what it is, and I cannot wait to share that with you. So stay tuned and cut me some slack here for maybe not having posted much in the past 2 weeks, but I'm working very hard for something I think you're all going to be really excited about. So without further ado, let's jump into the video and let's start with the Beast class. This cute little furball that we're giving away, as I mentioned before, it's a nasty 45 speed. Anytime you're up against 41 or 43 beasts, they're going to be in a world of hurt. You even have a bird card to give this build a little bit of extra balance, which can definitely come in handy. Cuckoo, one of the best zero costs in the game, so high damage, great zero cost to avoid stuns and also have nice utility, and for a low price. Now here's what I want to compare it to. 0.076 Ethereum. We found this thing sleeping on the floor. If we wanted a pure beast with a comparable move set, now this might be a little bit better because Hero does direct damage and Dual Blade is just more pure beast damage. So in terms of eliminating a tank, you're going to have an easier time with that than with this, but you also have to think about the price difference, which is 0.15 ETH for the pure and 0.07 is where we got this one. Also, you can kiss that speed advantage goodbye. You're never going to have that ability with this, and as you move up the ranks in the arena, all the other beasts you're going to face are going to be 43 or 45 speed once you crack a certain MMR. No one's running a 41 speed beast at a certain point. But the problem there is that if you wanted to run out and get a 45 speed version of this build, it's going to cost you 0.43 Ethereum. That is insane. When we can make 1 or 2 card adjustments, still have something very workable and get it for under 1/10 of an ETH. I know these aren't the exact same Axie, I'm not trying to say that they are, but for you to get involved in the game and have a really competitive build, you don't need to spend $1,500 on every Axie. That brings me to my second point around beasts, which is that we never really want to have a single Nutcracker card. This value drops significantly when we don't have the Nutcracker tail card to go with it. It should be pretty straightforward as to why, but I'll explain it. This does 120% extra damage when comboed with another Nutcracker card. So with only 1 slot, if we draw this early in the game, we only have 1 other draw of a card that we can get to get the damage bonus. Whereas if we have the tail to go with it, you're going to have 3 other cards that you can draw, giving you way more outs to that extra damage bonus that we really want to be maximizing. This definitely adds up in a big way over the course of the game. So you might run out and try to find a beast like this and think it's a decent decent price, but they're definitely not ideal. So I would look to avoid that. One other thing I'll say here is, as a side note, you really don't want a beast with Cottontail, at least not right now in the current meta. I'm sure you can make it work for climbing the ranks. It wouldn't be the end of the world on like a beast reptile build, for instance. But I can't remember the last time I've seen Cottontail in Arena in the top 100. I don't think anyone's running it, and it's because beasts are already vulnerable. Having a zero cost that doesn't do any damage, even though it gives us energy, really cuts back on our ability for it to serve the purpose that it needs to serve, which is usually to wipe out the tank in a quick manner. It's kind of a 2-for-1 in terms of mistakes here. Avoid the single nut, avoid Cottontail. I'm going to touch on tanks really quickly. My biggest recommendation is to actually not skimp on these when it comes to purity. They're really the only class that gets the biggest benefit from being fully pure. The other ones you have so much leeway with in terms of beasts and aquas, where you can find deals and even better builds that aren't the pure version. But plants, going last, being the slowest Axie, is really important so that you have the final say in who steals energy. If you go before their tank, let's say this was like a 32 speed, and you steal with Sirius in the early rounds, they have a big advantage going after you in that they get the chance to take it right back. For that, along with the fact that the high HP is really important to get as much value and durability out of this thing in the early game, I would say just buckle down and get an amazing classic build like this one here with Hot Butt, Cactus, and Sirius. You have to remember, this is also the backbone of mostly every build that you're going to be playing. Putting out the extra little bit of money to make sure you get it right the first time is worth it, in my opinion. That being said, a very common plant mistake early on is to pick up a heal tank such as this one. This is 0.093 ETH. It's the same build we just looked at, but a little cheaper. It has shiitake instead of pumpkin, okay? But I really do think pumpkin is way better. It's easier to play. You still get some value even if he doesn't hit you. You can draw a card, which can help out a lot. The shiitake is much more difficult to execute because it doesn't give you that much shield, meaning you can play it and still die a lot of the time. And you also might not get it right with them attacking into you. And if they don't hit you, you get no value out of it. So it's a relatively small difference in pricing, 350 instead of 302. So yes, I would highly recommend going the pumpkin route. Let's quickly talk about a very common mistake, which is the pitfall of double zero cost builds. You might be going out looking for some cheap Axies and see something like this. Now, you've been watching Axie on the Moon videos. You know Koi Aquas are all the rage. They're very good. You know having them with a zero cost card is very good as well to avoid stuns. So then bam, here you have it. Koi, Risky Fish, Hero, which does a little damage, so you might even be more deceived by this one and thinking that it could be good. And then Cuckoo, which also is deceptive because you know that it's an extremely good zero cost. So you might be thinking this hits all the check marks. It does not. 2 zero costs is pretty much never a good idea. It's going to be lacking in firepower. You need your cards to have value, especially your backliner. So this is definitely a no-go. I think people do this also with Nemo a lot of the time and another zero cost like Cuckoo, and they think it's good when it's definitely not. So make sure that you keep an eye out for this to avoid it across the board, no matter what build you're looking for. And one final thing about zero cost. Remember, we want to have one zero cost on our backliner. In almost all scenarios, it's super important to have one to deal with stuns that you might be facing against Terminator type builds. So the flip side of this mistake is getting a Koi Aqua backliner that has no zero cost. Something like this here. Okay, a lot of people rush out and they go search for pure Aquas. They get one that has high damage across the board. Now I gotta say, this is less of a mistake than getting a double zero cost for sure, because this actually has firepower. You can steamroll your opponent to a certain degree. But ultimately, if you're looking to go as high as you can, it's still a mistake. You would ideally want to have a zero cost card on your backline Koi Aqua. For birds, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. You need it to be pure and you need it to do a lot of damage. So if we go to 6 of 6 and we start to see stuff like this, it is a bad move. And again, you might get confused and think it's good with these two zero costs because one of them does damage, but you have to also consider, while Little Owl isn't a zero cost, it's pretty much the same in terms of its damage output. Like, it doesn't do any damage, in other words. So you're gonna be lacking firepower big time. This is why this build is so cheap, but you want it to be pure. Ideally, you want it to have a zero cost as well. So this is high firepower, but I'd still consider it a mistake, especially with Risky Feather. You don't have a cheap card or a low damage card to get rid of the debuff that's gonna get applied to you here. So I think post fight is almost an essential card to have on a bird. It's just so good. And then if you were going backdoor, you really want Little Owl, Eggshell, Blackmail, and you need it to be pure. This is the creme de la creme in terms of affordable bird builds that are really high quality. We're hitting all the marks. We're high damage. We have an incredible zero cost that actually has tons of damage here as well. Eggshell, Blackmail, we can transfer the egg to the opponent. Super solid. If I was to pick something up on the floor, like on the cheap, right? What would be doable? Again, it still needs to be pure. You can't go out and buy floor bird Axies. Like any of this is going to get you nowhere. But on this front page, yeah, this is definitely the first one that is certainly has playability here at 0.075. And let's talk about why really quickly. It has a zero cost. This helps us work around any snail shells or stuns that we might face in the game, whether in the mid game or in a 1v1. Eggshell allows us some outplay potential. We can hang on to that card and then draw our opponent away in a critical part of the game. Perhaps we have a beast at the midline and we need to keep that alive so that it can close the game out for us instead of our bird. If you're facing a huge beefy reptile in a 1v1, you don't want this little measly bird back there to do it because it's just going to fail. You need to play the egg in the round prior to the 1v1, draw the opponent away, and then have something like your beast at the midline to close it out. So this here for 0.075 is an example of a floor bird that you could roll with. The only time you're going to go 5 of 6 on purity is if you're doing a hair build, right? And that's just because this is still going to be faster than Aquas. It should give you some beef even in terms of your shield. The good versions of it are going to have Cuckoo and a lot of cards that give you 30 shield, so you can actually have survivability. But I mean, I would skip on like all of these pretty much. These are closer, but there's no zero cost, and that can be problematic, but this is at least a little bit more in the right direction of the hairbird. And then the cream of the crop, bam, wow, that right there, someone is asleep at the wheel for this to be 0.2 Ethereum. I might have to buy this just to have it. Yeah, this is what we're looking for if you want to go the hair route. You have Cuckoo in an amazing zero cost and high damage across the board. These are the themes that we're sticking with. We cannot start sacrificing a whole bunch on our damage on any build, really. You need to be able to kill stuff. That's kind of an important part of the game. Moving on, let's talk a little bit more about damage and some of the common mistakes I see, especially in the aqua market. People will go out and buy something like this, which for one, doesn't have a zero cost, which makes it bad, but also has a single anemone, which makes it extremely bad. You never want to have one anemone card on any aqua. This allows you to restore 50 HP to yourself for each part you possess, but the only effective version is when you have 2 of them. Here's a look at some of the other aqua cards that are probably going to get a lot of people into trouble. Going out and finding builds like this where you think a sponge midliner is a good build, right? We've seen Indes play it, but then they get one again here with a single anemone. Or they go out and get a sponge build with Babylonia, which is a little better than an anemone, but it's lacking damage now quite significantly and is making us pretty lopsided in terms of how much shield we have versus how much damage we can do. You would much rather have something like Shoal on the horn that does 115, or Oranda, which does 120, or you could go super meta and get a high damage beast or bug card on the horn, and then you would really be cooking. All right, let's end this video with the reptile class. I thought it'd be a cool idea to maybe look for a backliner and a floor Axie and see where I would find like the first playable solid build that you could pick up. And one thing you can do is filter your search to at least have Chomp. It's without question the best reptile mouth that you can have on a backliner. Honestly, if I had to choose one reptile on this very first page of Chomp floor Axies, it would be this for 0.066. If you were on an ultra budget, this at least has playability, and I hope it's starting to become clear why. We have lagging, which is a zero cost to help us with stuns, and great utility. We can slow our opponent. Even if we end up against a beast in a 1v1, and let's say he has 3 energy, we can put up enough shield with the Chomp and Thorny to survive a 3-card attack, play 1 slow, and then go first the following round to book the win. It's nothing to write home about in terms of its speed, right, at 41, but we have the ability at least to manipulate that. I mean, this is a Terminator just minus the snail shell, essentially. It doesn't have the stun on the back. We at least exchanged that for a very high damage bird card. And Kingfisher does 130. I believe this will end up doing 157 to beasts and bugs, something like that when you use it on a reptile. So it's nothing to scoff at for a couple $100 in the current Axie market. It's certainly the best that I saw on the front page. And of course, you know, we have the lagging thorny synergy for tons of damage. Here we have the same idea again. It's pretty much what we just saw, a little higher health, and you actually have Pigeon Post this time, which actually gives you 30 shield instead of 10. This is like a typo in the game. So for a little extra shield and the ability to transfer debuffs onto the enemy, this is probably even a better option than the first one. Once you start hitting grass snake, poison reptiles, and builds like that, or Garish Worm coming after your backliner, being able to just switch this off to the enemy with Pigeon Post and keep your reptile nice and healthy and clean is really valuable. So yeah, for 0.07, I think this is a pretty awesome pickup. On that note, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this video up. Do not forget to fill out the form below so you can be eligible to win this beast. Wednesday, September 1st, I'll be announcing the winner on Twitter. And then the first week of September, I have some massive news coming. So stay tuned for that. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitter at ElijahCTG, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.